And welcome, one and all, to another episode of the Apptrepreneur Show. This is the podcast where we discuss tech, pop culture, and life in between. And I am not alone on this episode, on this glorious Friday. It's been a while, but we have decided to bring back the one and only Mark from the channel formerly known as Uber Hints. Welcome, Mark. Oh, you're...
No, I'm good.
Now
Currently,
you're good.
see, you do that just to draw people in, right? What do you say? What? Currently known as Uber Hints, previously known as Uber Hints.
And somewhere in between.
Back.
Yep, and somewhere in between your Mark's travel time, although we will discuss that a little bit later. Anyway, how have you been doing these days?
Oh man, I have been doing fantastic. I'm happy, I'm healthy. I moved down to a more comfortable climate. I lost 35 pounds. Everything's going great.
Oh, sounds excellent. Yes, you're now living in Florida, but interestingly, not near Disney World, which surprised me a little bit. Granted, I didn't expect you to actually go to Orlando itself, but I felt like you'd probably maybe go to Kissimmee or something that's nearby where it's like, oh, well, if you go like 10 minutes away from Orlando, you get prices like this and you can still be near the Mouse Factory or the Mouse Castle.
Well, near is relative, right? I mean, it's far nearer than I was when I lived in Wisconsin. I've not been there since I moved down here, but I'm Southwest on the Gulf Coast, and probably I don't know, probably 3.5-hour drive to Orlando to Disney World. But no, that's not why I moved down here. I prefer to be near the water. If I'm going to be in Florida, I'm going to be on the water. I'm going to have palm trees in my yard.
Okay. So, and have you been happy with the move since then? Is it everything you dreamed?
It is fantastic. I even have my own neighborhood alligators.
Oh, well, that must make you feel very, very special.
Fantastic. No, I'm absolutely loving it. Of course, we haven't hit the hurricane season yet. We haven't hit the 100-degree days with 150-degree or 150% humidity. So I haven't been through all that. But yeah, so far so good.
Oh, all right. Well, anyway, it's great to have you back. Now, if only we could also get Cecily in here, we would have a monthly rideshare podcast.
It'd be like the old reunion.
Days. Yeah, it'd be just like the old days. In fact, it's going to get pretty close to the old days because we've got 3 main topics today, 2 of which revolve around Uber. So, right up our alley. It's actually been a while since I've done a podcast where Uber has taken 2 topics, but there you go. And let's start with that first topic. And it is, in fact, the topic of the video. Now, let's first share this article from The Guardian. And the headline is, of course, an attention grabber. That's what headlines do. And it says, a slap in the face. California Uber and Lyft drivers criticize pay cuts under Prop 22. Now, of course, the thing about Prop 22 is that Prop 22 was based... I mean, you and I disagree about this a little, but from my perspective, Prop 22 was basically a law Uber bought. It was basically them, California was basically going to start making them accountable. I don't believe for a second that Uber drivers are actually independent contractors. I really don't. I mean, again, you and I have differences of opinion on this. There's old episodes. You all can go back and listen to them if you want. But from my perspective, it's like, hey, if you can't see where you're going, if you don't know what you're making up front, if you can't do a multitude of things, you're an employee in my perspective. And California seemed to agree with me, not me specifically. I didn't inspire 85, but they did kind of agree with my way of thinking. Like, yeah, you know what? Uber really shouldn't be allowed to have this sort of control over the drivers, but then, call them independent contractors and pay them less than minimum wage and not give them health benefits. So they made AB5. Uber was going to be held liable. They're going to be made accountable, I should say, that, hey, you know what? Your drivers are now going to be considered employees. Well, Uber made this thing with Prop 22, and of course, they promised that if Prop 22 passed, they would make more money. They would have more freedoms, and if it failed, they would lose jobs. They would make less money, and of course, I told them, no, actually, the exact opposite is going to happen. If Prop 22 passes, you're going to get screwed again, because Uber's the kind of company that I distrust so much that if Dara Khosrowshahi told me outside that it was sunny outside, I would go to two strangers on the street and ask them, is it sunny outside? That's how little I trust people at Uber. So I knew that drivers were going to get screwed if Prop 22 passed. And it did, and sure enough, they're getting screwed. The destination revealing feature that they love so much, gone. The feature that showed them exactly how much they were going to make, gone. Pay cut. And people, of course, contacted me, and they're like, why aren't you talking about
the multiplier? Gone.
And the multiplier, yes. The multiplier, Uber gave you the multiplier so you could name your own price. Very important thing if you are an independent contractor. Gone. Well, people, of course, email me like, why aren't you talking about how the drivers are getting screwed? And I keep responding because I'm not really an Uber channel anymore. Uber takes up such a small percentage of my videos every month, and it should be. People say, where have you gone, Apptrepreneur? I'm still making videos. They're just on other topics. Surely you guys have a life outside of rideshare, right? But I think the bigger question, as I look at articles like this and I continue to get these emails, is, are people just incapable of quitting Uber and Lyft? Because that seems to be the big issue. This company has literally been screwing people for years, well over a decade at this point. And yet we still, not we personally, because, I quit Uber a while ago, but we still... I
saw you deliver a bottle of water the other day.
Yeah, well, that was a special occasion. But, they still go back to Uber, and they keep, saying, well, things will get better if I just complain enough. And as our buddy Dark Road Run pointed out, no, they won't. It's become like a battered girlfriend syndrome thing where you have a girlfriend whose boyfriend is abusive, and they keep saying, well, I can change him and he can get better. It's like, no, they're set in their ways. They're not going to change. And yet people, I think, know this, and they don't necessarily quit. Heck, you even went back to Uber Hints after so much explaining why you were scrapping the Uber Hints name. You want to be Mark's Travel Time. You didn't want to be tied to such a corrupt company. You went back to Uber Hints. So I'm actually more curious about that than I am mad, by the way, but just throwing that out there. But that does beg the question, are we just incapable of quitting Uber? And if so, why? Mark, what do you think about this?
I'm not sure that it's the same driver core constantly. I think it's constant turnover. I think we're going through a really weird period right now with the pandemic. And I think that people, they get lured in with these outrageous bonuses that Uber has been offering. I'm still getting those bonus offers as if I'm a driver in Milwaukee, and people from other areas have been saying that too. And one that I'm seeing a lot, take 3 drives, get $100.
Oh, my wife got that one. She got that one. She didn't want to do it, by the way.
I've gotten that a couple of times. And on the flip side of this, the really weird thing, because I have been a customer for Uber Eats quite a bit. I'm not doing the traveling I used to, but when I did, I used to use Uber Eats a lot. And I'm getting order $25 and get $20 off. Hell's bells, how in the world can you order? Can they subsidize your order to the tune of 80%? how can they do it? And and yet the stock prices are doing fairly well. So I don't know. As far as people coming back, I think that drivers are lured back in the short term, and then they walk away. Then they come back when they see another good offer, and they walk away. And I think there's constant turnover as well. I think Uber is a predator, and they go after the weak. They're like lions going after a bunch of lame chickens, and the lame chickens are often immigrants. They're people who are just in dire straits. Right now, it's people who may not have worked in the past year, and they're willing to trade the future money for immediate money. And I've talked about this in my channel, but what I mean by that is they will take the money right now in exchange for things like wear and tear and depreciation on their car later. So I think all of that is what's setting up this whole thing that keeps. It's kind of like Uber. It's the old, the old comparison of building a plane as you're flying it. That's kind of what Uber's doing. They just keep getting drivers on board as they trudge along, hoping that they're going to continue to have the drivers they need. At some point, is that whole thing ever going to collapse? I don't know. As long as there are needy people that need money, Uber's going to prey on them.
Yeah, well, they've not been super successful on making the money part. And in fact, there's kind of almost a bigger discussion to be had there about companies whose stock is doing very well while they continue to cut out their main sources of revenue. I'm thinking about like how, like Warner Brothers and Paramount are putting their movies on streaming faster and faster, and the stockholders are like, yay! And it's like, but you're not really making money when you do that, so why is that a yay? But anyway, so I do agree that there might be some new drivers, but what about the old driver? Now, I don't want to throw any current viewers or subscribers.
Go ahead, name names.
No, I won't. I mean, there's also people I don't like. I could also throw under the bus, but I
really name names.
Nah. I'm kind.
We're not talking Chicago, are we?
Yeah, but not who you're thinking of. Not who you're thinking of. It's not that not that guy. I actually, I kind of moved on, but I see other Uber tubers, because some of them still exist, and they've got much smaller channels, and they're still spending time making videos about Uber. And here's the thing: when I make an Uber video now, it's about Uber as a company. Mm-hmm. Like, what are they doing in the stock? What technological things are they investing in now? That's still worth talking about to me, but I don't talk about drivers' rights anymore. Like, from my perspective, drivers completely screwed the pooch when they supported Prop 22. And as I said at the time, I am not going to fight for people who will not fight for themselves. And I stand by that. And yet I see people who the jig was up a long time ago, and they've been driving long enough that they should know better. And they're still making these Uber sucks videos. Look what Uber's doing to me. And at some point, it's like, why don't you just quit? You've had plenty of time to think about this. Heck, the pandemic brought Uber to a halt pretty much. I'm sure with all that time to sit in your house and Netflix terrible movies, you had to be thinking about, where's my life going after this is all said and done? And yet the response was to go back to Uber, and you're still like, I don't know. Am I missing something? I mean, do people have these discussions when they think about whether or not they want to quit McDonald's?
Terrible movies. I was just watching Army of the Dead.
Yeah, I rest my case. I rest my case.
Well, first of all, you have to remember, and I hate to say this is going to sound condescending, but Prop 22 is just a California problem. There are 49 other states that don't care what California does, you know. And I know California has a hard time accepting that they are actually irrelevant to most of the other
Oh, I
United
think
States.
Uber will screw
But,
you regardless of what state you live in.
but here's the thing: do you trust the state of California? Because
Uh,
I always said AB5, Prop 22. Oh boy, it's like choosing between the electric chair and the noose. You
what
know, well, I mean,
I
AB5.
I
I always
know.
said it was not even the lesser of the two evils because there was no lesser. AB5 was horrendous. AB5 was a nightmare, and Gonzalez ought to be she ought to be tarred and feathered and then carried out of town on a rail. I don't think they do any of those things anymore. But if they did, she should, as a result of this piece of
Well,
crap legislation that she
well,
pushed.
we're not talking about
We
California.
are. Now wait a
No,
minute. We
no,
have
no, no.
we
We
have
are
to talk about this
no.
because that's what led to Prop 22.
No.
If they never passed AB5, Prop 22 never would have happened. When Prop 22 happened, it gave Uber free reign in the state of California.
If AB5 had never been passed, would Uber have stopped screwing the drivers?
No.
I mean, come on,
No.
come on. At the end of the day, Uber's the one who's going to screw the drivers, and that's a bigger question. Like, why do drivers who know that a company is deliberately screwing them, no matter which way it turns, still come back to them?
Okay, I'll tell you why. Because you and I both have viewers that can figure it out. I had a viewer the other day in my live stream, and he made this is what he says. Now I can't say it's true or not, but you know, he made $1,000 the day of my live stream. So there are some people. I know, but
I'm dubious of that.
Okay, but I am. There are people that are figuring that out, and when they have $100 for 3 rides, I can knock 3 rides out in 35 minutes.
Yeah, now that's a good deal. I'm not gonna lie. If I got that deal, heck, I might have actually done 3 rides.
And what they're hoping for is once you do 3 rides, you're going to hang around and spend the rest of the day driving. Me, I would cut my losses. I do 3 rides, and then I'd go home and I'd watch Army of the Dead.
But
or maybe I'd do something productive with my day. Who knows?
Yeah. People in the comments need to actually tell us if they've seen Army of the Dead and if they think that's a productive use of your time. I mean, it's free on Netflix, but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, look, if they offered me, by the way, they sent me an email, and this is, by the way, how I know that they know what I do on my side, because my offer was 3 rides, I get $18. That's how I know Uber knows who I am.
Well, I guess I'm flying under the radar to this day.
Yeah, but you know, now that does bring another question, though. Because you were so disgusted by this company, you moved on from Uber Hints, but now you're Uber Hints again. I felt like I was back in 2019.
Yep.
What happened there, buddy?
It was a failed experiment. It was more about brand identification than anything. Once I changed, I not only flatlined, but I started losing subscribers and losing viewers. It's a funny thing, once I went to Uber Hints, I'm seeing subscriptions go up again. So it was wholly a business decision. It had nothing to do with an allegiance to Uber. It was my identification. I think when people were interested in rideshare and they were looking on YouTube, Mark's Travel Time meant nothing to them. Uber Hints, you search and it pops up to the top of searches. So, you know, it's sort of like I'm starting over again for the second time.
Yeah.
But it was really more about that. It was more about brand identification than anything.
Yeah. Hi, Lisa's here. What do you know?
Hey, Lisa.
Nice. So, anyway, even though we're not technically done on this topic, driver Steve did say, why hasn't anyone other rideshare company come in and taken over the market from Uber and Lyft? It's an excellent opportunity now. And I just want to say, Steve, buddy, with all due respect, do you not read the news? Uber and Lyft aren't profitable. That's like, hey,
Was it
this
14
market is
years now for Uber?
14 years. Yeah. It's like this market is ripe for the taking. It's like the market where they're paying for $20 off the $25 order is ripe for the taking. Who would want that market right now? I mean,
A goat.
goat. Mm.
The goat.
Did that
I heard that I heard they're coming on strong.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't seen anything of. I
Crash and burn.
I just figured out who you're talking to. Well, I'm not getting into that one. That's between you two on that one. But yeah, so I don't know. I just find it very interesting because I've agonized about leaving a job before, and what do you know? My mom's calling me, but I guess I'm gonna have to. Should I answer it? Nah, I won't. We'll continue.
I bet viewers would love to hear you talk to your mom.
They probably would. It might make for an interesting, but no, we're not going to do that. Anyway, I've agonized about leaving jobs that I've not been particularly happy with before. We've all had a job that we didn't like, but there's a difference between leaving a job and leaving Uber. When I was leaving another job, it's like, well, they paid me more than minimum wage. I was working full time. I had benefits. I had dental. I had a 401k. I mean, it's kind of an agonizing decision. It's like, so do I risk all of that for this new job that I might technically like more, but if it doesn't work out, then, I've given up quite a lot. I don't know what you're exactly giving up on Uber when you decide to leave it behind, because it takes and takes from you. And yet I just noticed a lot of people have a hard time doing that. And I don't understand why it's difficult to walk away. And this is, by the way, where people watching this live can maybe come in and share your thoughts. If you've been doing this for more than a few years, like, why haven't you actually left? We would definitely love to discuss them at the end. But yeah, I don't know. So
what does leaving mean? The thing with Uber is you can leave, quote unquote, leave for a year and just one day decide to start driving again. There is no leaving because it's app based. It's just so easy to put it off. And I feel like I need $80 today, so I'm gonna hop in my car and drive. It's such a different way to earn money, and that might be the appeal for people.
Well, leaving is leaving and not coming back. Now, of course, I don't blame the people who got those emails that said, hey, if you do 3 rides, we'll give you $100. Again, if I got that email, but I didn't, I got an $18 offer. Heck, 3 rides is nothing. Yeah, I'll do it. But I've seen people who have started and stopped, and it seems like whenever they come back to restart, they keep hoping for a different result. And it's like, what? Why? Like, this is that classic example of doing the same terrible thing and expecting a different result every time. It just doesn't work.
And not only is it just terrible, it got worse. Eats used to be real profitable for me. And Uber Eats has changed so dramatically that now you barely get paid by the company. You're reliant on tips, and if your customer doesn't tip you, you don't make anything. How it's so common to say this delivery will get you $2.50. $2.50? I'm supposed to drive to a restaurant, hang around, whistling Dixie, take this food, go deliver it to someone and make $2.50 for something that might take me 20 minutes, 25 minutes. You got to be kidding me. And now I'm wasting my time, my gas, wear and tear on my vehicle for $2.50. No wonder there's that video of that woman that went ballistic on her customer because they didn't tip her enough. She took their food back. You see that one, right?
I've seen that one. I saw it on the channel of a mutual friend of ours, I believe. And
it was on my channel too. So.
Oh, well, sorry, I didn't give you the view. Maybe it was the Mark's travel time thing. Maybe
whatever.
I'm kidding. But yeah, no, it's just extremely frustrating. And so for people who want to know, why don't I talk about drivers' rights anymore? Why don't I talk about the pay and stuff? It's because it's not news. And frankly, it is entirely within your ability to quit. Whether you want to quit or not, that's up to you. I have spent the last couple years making my case for why you should. And now I just want to talk about the company. Although, interestingly, our next topic, we will discuss one thing that revolves around the drivers, because I think it might be worth talking about. But anyway, folks, we would like to know, and any other final thoughts on this topic, Mark, before we move on to the next one?
No, I'm not even sure what the topic is that we're discussing, other than we're bashing Uber.
Well, that's what people wanted to see us do, and hey, we shall.
We're not going to disappoint.
Not going to disappoint. Anyway, folks, if you're still driving for Uber but are consistently unhappy doing so, why haven't you quit? What's stopping you? We would love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and flame responsibly. And Lisa's, of course, giving us an LOL. Well, we always appreciate. Now, driver Steve did say, I haven't stopped rideshare because I'm not able to hold 9 to 5 job anymore. Sometimes I'm sleeping during the day and sometimes during the night. I have health issues that prevent me. Yeah, well, you might want to stick around for the end of the episode, though, because we're actually going to be talking about employment for people like you, and why that's actually a good comment to keep in mind for a topic that we're doing later. But before we get to that, let's discuss main topic number 2. And this was actually inspired by one of your videos, Mark's. Now, on Sunday, you posted a video and you're talking about how the CDC has changed guidelines on mask mandates. That basically, if you have been fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask indoors anymore. And by the way, I totally agree with this. Some people might be surprised to hear me say that, because it's like I've been pretty strong, wear your damn mask. But the thing is, one of the reasons I like the idea of a vaccine is because it's like, yeah, but once you get the vaccine, you can at the very least wear a heck of a lot less. And I was always a little surprised that some people were saying like, oh, well, after you get the vaccine, you should wear the mask anyway. And it's like, well, you're not going to incentivize anyone to get the vaccine with that argument. But anyway, so the CDC ultimately did change their policy and said, or their recommendation said, hey, if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. And you made a video asking, because Uber is still requiring drivers to wear the masks. And you made a video about, well, but we're independent contractors technically. What right does Uber have to tell us that we have to wear a mask even though we're vaccinated? Well, first of all, there's actually a very good reason for that, because apparently the CDC guidelines did not make an exception for people in the travel industry. Fully vaccinated.
I'm going to take exception to that. What they said was businesses, essentially say businesses, governments can still make their own rules. Their recommendation is you can go without the mask, go without distancing, except in instances where governments, industries, and of course, travel industry chose to make their own rule, which is, well, I just flew last weekend. They still have that.
Well, the USA Today said at this point, the federal mask mandate for transportation sectors remains in effect.
And there's the government stipulation that CDC put in place.
There's the government stipulation. Now, here's the thing. I don't disagree with you quite as much as you think. So ultimately, the question: do I have to wear a mask in Uber or Lyft? And the answer is yes. The Uber and Lyft ride-sharing companies require drivers and riders to wear masks. So if it's a government ordinance, there's not a whole lot Uber and Lyft can do. But Uber and Lyft have been known to basically overstep their boundaries at times. And there is, and it does raise the question, well, what if the government ordinance, and I can, by the way, see them doing something like this, because people love to sue Uber. I mean, don't believe me, I think Uber is one of the top 5 companies that have been sued for every year for the last 5 years. Like, the top 5 companies that get lawsuits, Uber is in the top 5, so somewhere in there. I think they're just underneath Monsanto or something like that. And I would not be surprised if Uber says, even after the government removes their mask mandate, hey, you got to still wear a mask even if you're fully vaccinated, or you're not going to keep your job. And I actually agree with you, Mark. Like, well, what right does Uber technically have to do that? I mean, you are supposedly an independent contractor. You're supposed to be able to run the business like you would if it was your own. Although this is also the company that does not want you to know where you're going, which is very essential to being an independent contractor. They'll take away the multiplier because you use it too much. And they always do things that will benefit the company that will not necessarily, benefit the drivers. So, yeah, I guess there is a bigger question, like, does Uber have the right to do that? And if they do overstep that boundary, honestly, what's anyone going to do about it? I don't see an Uber driver suing Uber over something like this and getting very far with it, even if it's a very legitimate complaint.
Okay. First of all, I would say any company has the right, if you're talking about rights, they have the right to make any rule they want. It's their company. If I own a store, I say I don't want someone coming without a blue shirt. I can do that. I can't make a restriction on the color of your skin, but I might be able to make a restriction on the color of the shirt that you wear. I'm not sure, but I think so. If I have my business, my business, my rules, right? My car, my rules. Well, this is where we're learning that it really isn't our car, our rules, which is, I am not an advocate of everybody doing what they want. What I'm an advocate of is not, I think the system we have in place is a flawed system right now. I don't believe that it has to be either you're a independent contractor or you're an employee. Who says that there could be a system where there's 10 different designations? Just because we happen to have that designation right now doesn't mean it's right. It's obviously not working right now. And yes, Uber can make rules, but the point of my video is it doesn't make sense, because what is a mask? I saw a guy today, I'm not kidding, by himself in his car with a mask on. What in the hell is he doing?
Okay, well,
who's he going to infect himself?
I'm going to chip in. I'm going to chip in just for a second. I'm
on a roll,
But I just want to say I have done that when the trip from point A to point B was so short. It was more trouble to take the mask off than it was to leave it on. So there.
All right. I'm just saying, what's the point of getting vaccinated if we're going to wear a mask anyways? Are we going to wear a mask now for all eternity? Is this going to be like the stupidity level? What was that dumb movie where everyone just kept getting dumber and dumber and dumber when he went in the future? Idiocracy. Is that what we're entering now? Why are you wearing a mask? I don't know. The government says so. I was watching our president on TV. They were doing he was doing a virtual meeting with other world leaders.
And a couple of them were wearing masks.
He was the only one wearing a mask.
Really?
Our president. What?
Because I know China has that rule.
It's a virtual meeting, for crying out loud.
Well, the governor of your former state of Wisconsin required that too, which was
there you go.
Yeah, that was a bit of a idiotic thing, but
yep.
But no, that seriously though, I mean, I really do think that question should really highlight to people they are not the independent contractors they think they are. I mean, if Uber says, well, it's our company, we can do what we want. It's like, yeah, but you are arguing that this is your, hey, we platform you, but this is your business. You make your own rules. You do what you want. And actually, it kind of just dawned on me as I read this as this mask mandate. People who are in the transportation industry are not exempt from it. So that means Uber and Lyft are not exempt from it. But it's like, wait a minute. Haven't Uber and Lyft argued many times they're not a transportation company?
Yeah, they're a technology company.
They're a technology company. So technically, they shouldn't have to actually... you shouldn't actually have to follow this then. Now, Driver Steve says, how do we know for sure if someone has been vaccinated? Because currently there is no proof. Well,
who cares?
Like,
if you're vaccinated, who cares?
Yeah. I would say for your safety, get vaccinated. But for those of you who are wondering, because it's funny, I've gotten to like Twitter conversations with people who are really anti-mask and keep going, well, how are they going to prove this? How are they going to do that? And I'm like, you know what? People like you who are so intent to not get vaccinated and to flaunt the rules, like that's why they're going to make they'll find some way to verify that you've got your vaccine. And under the HIPAA Act, there is like,
now that's it.
No
now
problem.
You got things like HIPAA. Who has the right to dig into my medical history?
Actually, the funny thing
I'm just talking in general terms. Anybody, right?
Well, some people are acting like this is a whole dictatorship thing, but the thing is, it's always been the opinion of HIPAA that if you have a disease or virus that can affect other people, and or we're in a pandemic, which we are, then it's not illegal for people and companies to ask for proof that you've been vaccinated or what your status is. So you can't say that this is a new tyrannical rule thing. It's always been there. It's just we've never had to actually use it, really.
So it's an old tyrannical rule.
It's as I've explained to people who say that their freedoms are getting violated. It's like, the funny thing about freedoms, you're only free so long as you're not affecting everyone else. You're allowed to get piss-ass drunk as much as you want in your own home, but public intoxication and driving while intoxicated, well, now you're affecting other people, and now there's a problem.
Okay, so do we treat every single driver on the road as if they're stinking drunk?
Well,
because that's what you're suggesting, is that we treat everybody like they're the carrier of a contagious disease.
I'm not saying that. I'm
not saying you necessarily, but if you follow that logic to the end, you can say we will allow that, but not someone to drink and drive. But once we start treating every citizen of a country like they're doing that, every citizen of the country is not drinking and driving. Every citizen of the country is not carrying an infectious disease.
No, but that's why they're going to have a COVID passport or some sort. Like, they're coming. Like, people don't want to think they're coming. There is going to. I was actually talking with some friends who are probably a little bit more religious than I am. Well, or at least they interpret the Bible differently, and they don't want a COVID passport because they think that that's like the mark of the beast, and that's a violation of their rights. It's like, it is a violation of my rights if I have to show a card that says I'm not sick to do something. And I'm like, oh, really? So your issue is that you think it's a violation of your rights to have to show a card to confirm you're not sick. And they're like, yeah. So just clarify, showing a card, that's your problem. That's a violation of your rights. And they're like, yes. Like, okay. So what do you do when you go someplace and they ask to see your driver's license? What about your social security number? Can't do anything without that.
Now you're getting into voter ID.
Yep. Well,
do you want to open that can of beans?
No. No. Other than to say, I think people are wildly overreacting to some of the Georgia stuff. Now, right here, Lisa says we do have those cards that we get after vaccinated for proof, and I totally understand that. I mean, I think the TSA though is asking for more official cards because a lot of people are making. Yeah, they want something laminated, or because people
they don't want you to laminate the card because they want to be able to add to that card when you get the boosters. That's why they say put them in a case like this.
Yeah, well, what they'll probably do, they'll probably just make like a card, like a permanent card, and then when you get the boosters, they'll put like a sticker on the spots or a punch or something like that. But the people who don't want to get vaccinated, and by the way, the people who are not getting vaccinated, you do this to yourselves when you do things like this. They're printing out and making fake COVID cards, and it's like, look, they're going to be able to figure out that they're fake, and when you do that, you only heighten the need for an official thing. Like this is why the honor system just does not work, unfortunately. But again, we got way off topic on what the original topic was.
But that's the thing. You start a topic like this, and it's always going to lead down that path.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And I actually I fully expected it. That's why there's only 3 topics today instead of 5, because I expected something to do that. So Driver Steve says it's when you are prevented from buying or selling unless you have the mark is when I have a problem, which yeah, that's thank you, Driver Steve. Steve, on a side tangent, boy, did Left Behind really cause a lot of problems for us. That book series, people took that as gospel, and anyways,
are you talking about those religious books?
Yeah, the ones that are not biblical, by the way. Like the end times looks nothing like that in the Bible, but people read those and then they started looking for real world signs that this was happening, and it's like, guys, it's a fictionalized version of what they believe is going to happen. So, but anyway, so bottom line, say the government changes their mind. Okay, travel, if you've been vaccinated, don't need to wear a mask. Uber and Lyft say, we don't like getting sued for anything more than we have to. We're going to require drivers to leave our masks on, even if they're vaccinated. I know your thing. Like, what can anything actually be done about that?
It's just when you get. That's why I've been calling it the panic-demic, because people are reacting in a panic. Everyone's in panic mode, and by that logic, when will it ever stop? When will it ever end? We're living in the idiocracy. Move on. And I hate it when people say, well, you're going to kill me. You're a murderer. Oh, get a life.
Yeah. So just to clarify my stance, everyone, if you get the vaccine, I think it's good. And I think you're much, much safer with it. And you're not going to kill anyone. Like, that's the whole reason we're doing the vaccines in the first place. But as for everything else, we would like to know what you think about it and what is likely to be a very, very, very tempered, and I'm sure not at all irrational discussion in the comments below. We'd love to know your thoughts. So comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. As always, flame responsibly. Now then, final topic, and this is not necessarily rideshare related, because this isn't a rideshare channel anymore. We just happen to have a couple of topics to talk about. But since we are talking about the pandemic, one thing that has definitely changed about the pandemic is how we work. Now, Mark, I know what you did for work. I'm not going to share anyone what it was. So this might not, strictly speaking, relate to you, but full disclosure, everyone, I did get a 9-to-5 job when the pandemic began. Just YouTube revenue dropped. You do what you have to do.
My what I did no longer was being done during the pandemic.
I do, but just in case you want to go back to doing it, if it's ever allowed again, I don't don't want to burn any. Don't want to prevent that from happening. But
and if you guys are wondering, I was a dancer for Chippendales.
Yeah. That's not true. He was a dancer for Hooters, but I was trying not to. But anyway, one of the things that has happened is the work from home model, because people had to separate. They had, and companies, the thing is, we live in a great technological world. We've got cloud computing. We've got Google. We've got Apple products. Microsoft doesn't suck anymore, and we've got desktops and laptops and tablets. Oh my Lord, so many ways our phones do more than the computers of 20 years ago. So people started working from home, those of them that could, because who wants to completely shut down if you don't have to? And the thing is, for over a year, I think the verdict is in. It has worked great. Studies have shown that people working from home are mostly more productive. It saves a ton of gas. It's better for the environment because people aren't driving. And a lot of companies were saying, yeah, this is probably the way of the future. We're going to continue doing this long after this pandemic is over. But that didn't end up being the case. In fact, a lot of companies, particularly places like JP Morgan and at first Google, actually started pulling everybody back to the office. Like, you're expected to come back to work. People were moving. They were relocating, getting better houses at cheaper prices because they could take the work with them, and it did not affect their work productivity at all. Now, on a side note, if you did relocate and didn't verify with your employers that you could do that, and that's probably on you. I'm sorry to say. Make sure you can actually live somewhere in the long term before you make any drastic life-altering decisions. But nevertheless, a lot of companies, including the one that I work for, who, by the way, do not have this stance, were saying that, they were going to do this long term. But a lot of companies are now changing the tune on that. They want people to come back into the office. They want people to be part of the company culture once more. Even WeWork CEO, and I made a video about this that's going to go up on Monday because this was just a stupid thing for him to say, considering the business WeWork is in, said that people who work from home are less motivated to work and they don't take their jobs seriously. And yet, the last year and a half, hey, a lot of these industries were working great, even with work from home. Now, it is true that some people would prefer the office space, and it is true that some people probably are more productive in the office because they get too distracted at the home. Personally, I work so much better at home. In fact, how many years when I do like my own entrepreneurial stuff, am I working at home, doing my own stuff? I think work from home is great. But now employees are feeling burned. They're complaining that their companies lie to them. They're complaining that their companies are not taking their needs seriously because, for example, mothers are more free to take care of their newborns with the work from home business model, and they just don't understand why companies are just so insistent that we got to go back to the office when, by all accounts, things have been working out great. So here's my question. This is, I guess, what the conversation is going to be. Like, Mark, why do you think companies had such an about face about remote work, and what kind of problems do you think? Because here's the thing. Well, I don't personally think that there's never putting a genie back in the bottle. I think that's a very illogical way of looking at things. Sometimes you make certain extreme concessions under circumstances. But, in this case, it seemed to work for the most part. And the employees said that they would prefer that it continue to be this way. And companies are now really risking and angering their employees by not taking their feelings into consideration. And is work culture really that important? What do you think?
Depends what job you're doing. I mean, if you have to get up and make the donuts, yeah, you pretty much have to go into the office. If you're a cubicle person or a sweater lady, and a sweater lady is my term for those ladies who always put a sweater on the back of their swivel chair, So if you're a sweater lady, no, you can probably do that from home. Are you going to waste time at home? Yes, you're going to waste time at home. Have you ever worked in a cubicle office? People are always up. How often do you stick your head in the cubicle and the person's not there? They're up, they're wandering around, they're getting a drink, they're going to the bathroom, they're going to the break room, they're stopping, they're chatting with someone else. I got to ask Bob a question. The question is, hey, Bob, how'd your golf game go? What are you doing next week? And how's the kids? How's the dog? How's your mother-in-law? It's just a different kind of screwing off. And I think depending on the job, if you're working phone rooms, if you're working scheduling for a company, you might as well be doing that from home. Mm-hmm. If you're doing training of some sort for an organization, maybe you have to be on site because these might be site-specific things, maybe not. I think there is a lot of engagement that is lost when you don't have face-to-face conversations. I think that there is some dynamics that fall to the wayside. I see value in it. I think just like I said earlier, when we talk about there has to be one model or the other, I think that what we're going to find out is the best model is a hybrid. You know, maybe there's a few days you can be at home. There's other times we want you at the office, and here's why. That's my take. I think companies are, just like we talked about earlier, they're concerned about losing control. It's difficult to monitor a employee when they're not on site. And sometimes by the time you monitor by the progress they make and how productive they are, now it's too late because they're unproductive and you've wasted all this time. When if they were on site, maybe you could make a little course adjustment. Okay. I don't know. I think it depends on what kind of business it is and what kind of job it is myself. Yeah. If you're an Uber driver, you're not doing that virtually from home. By the way, I got a really good video coming up about your favorite company, Tesla, and an automatic car. And
I can't wait. Story. I can't wait to watch it. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the not being able to monitor remotely because, and I'm not going to say who I'm working for, everyone. I'm not even going to tell you what I do, only to say that it's a very unexciting job that pays very well. And that's all I'll say about it. But they started letting go of people who had been there for years. And it wasn't because they were struggling financially. It was because now that they were looking at the pure metrics on what their production was, they started realizing that some of these people were not producing nearly as well as they could have been for a long time. And so they cut them loose. Now, for those reasons, this company says that work from home is more or less here to stay. They are going to have a hybrid model, and in some cases, you might have to come into the office for certain things. But they were like, nope, we can monitor you better remotely. Now, I have a friend who has been working remotely long before the pandemic. He is disabled, and as a result, it's like a hassle for him to actually go to the office. So he's worked from home for years, finally retired during the pandemic. And he said something that I think is probably true. He said, the vast majority of people are able to work from home and would be able to do so with no interruption to their workflow, if not better. And the primary reason they don't is because the companies simply don't trust them.
Mr. Spacely always wanted George Jetson to come in, even though they talk to each other over a picture phone. Figure that out.
Yeah, no, that's funny. The Jetsons. Yeah, because, why can't George Jetson work from home? All he does is press a button, but they don't want him to press the button from home, although the Jetsons didn't predict smartphones. Maybe a rebooted Jetsons, George can start the machine on an app. Who knows? But
touch screen instead of a push button.
Yeah, but I'm kind of I am kind of wondering if that's kind of what's going on. If there's now like a power control, like they were forced to send people home because the government stated that you had to stay a certain feet apart. It did work for them. Many companies even said that, hey, the results were better than we could have happened. But then when push came to shove, it's like now we want to reassert control of our employees. And the employees are basically saying, like, that's rather insulting to us because we have obviously done enough to keep our jobs and the company didn't go under and nothing really fell apart at the end of the day, but you're having us go back to the office. Like one of my friends said, yeah, now that I've been working from home for 8 months, obviously this was still middle pandemic. He's like, the only thing I don't do now is talk to coworkers, and I don't really need to do that to do my job. So if they make me go back to the office, it's going to feel more punitive than anything else.
Coworkers are overrated.
Coworkers are, yeah, well, I don't want to. I like some of my coworkers. We
honestly, after you leave a company, other than maybe the first few months, how often do you really stay in contact with your coworkers? For the first month or two, you call them, you talk to them, you go out to lunch once or twice. After that 2 or 3 months, you're done. Cut the cord. You've left the nest, baby.
Well, the funny thing is that's not 100% true for me because I actually had years ago, I was a delivery driver for Round Table Pizza. I guess a prelude to my Uber career. And my manager, Marco, who might actually be on this show one of these days, you never know, but we have stayed friends for more than 10 years. So it happens.
That's one
person.
Employee in 10 years you stayed in contact with.
Yeah, it's not like it's a lot of people. Oh yeah, by the way, Darcy says companies will save huge amount of money on toilet paper and space. Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, one of the reasons my company, I think, basically decided they were going to stay hybrid is that they started hiring remote work exclusively, and they were able to expand their operations without opening a third office. And I don't think that was lost on them.
And parking and commute, and you don't have to buy coffee and donuts for the meeting. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, if you want to talk about a carbon footprint, think about all those employees that are burning all that gas, going to work and back. Those irresponsible companies, what are they thinking?
Well, and especially in California, LA, the traffic is it pollutes a lot, and B, it's just super, super annoying. Like, if I can avoid that as much as possible, that's great. So yeah, I think it's kind of, the biggest question mark was actually Google. I was surprised when Google, who was the first company to really do this, because they were by far the best equipped to go remote.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. They were the first to really, they went hard. Like, you are expected back in the office. Now they backtracked a little bit on that, but the question was, why Google of all people? Because they have products that benefit. They sell more product when companies work remote. And here they are trying to lead the charge back into the office. You do know that means less Google products are going to be sold, right? Like, why would they do that?
You stumped me with that question. I don't have an answer.
Yes, I finally stumped it. We knew eventually it would happen. Eventually.
I know that you hoped I would go into one of my 4-minute diatribes, but no, I don't get it. I think the only thing I can say, it's control. It really is control. They feel that they're going to lose oversight. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it really should be production based, but sometimes it's too late then. When by the time someone has proven themselves to be unproductive, you've wasted a lot of time. And if you're in the office, you can say, hey, Bob, come on, get to it. Put the phone down.
Yeah.
You can't do that when they're virtual.
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, I communicate with my coworkers frequently on Slack, and We have each other's numbers, where if it's really urgent, you can call them or they can call you. I mean,
I'm not saying
yeah,
you don't have support. What I'm saying is, I can't look over the cubicle and make sure that my underling is doing their job. It's a little trickier when you're virtual. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that's the only thing that I can think that the companies they want to have. They want to have that iron fist.
yeah,
They're used to it. They're
yeah.
acclimated to it. It's the way it's been since the dawn of time. And now we've changed that. We've changed it dramatically in a 1-year period.
Yeah, we found out that when employees are happier and more relaxed, most of them tend to produce.
Take it away.
So and actually that whole checking over the cubicle thing, it kind of depends what side of the cubicle you're on. Like if the person's monitor is facing away from you when you're
thinking the restrooms. I'm talking about their workspace.
Some of these cubicles are set. I know what you're getting at, but some of these cubicles, I'm being difficult. What can I say?
I'm reminded when I was about 11 years old.
It's Mark's story time.
It's a good story though. We were at the Wisconsin State Fair Park, and I don't know, I was 11, 12, 13, something like that. And we had our little mob of kids we hung around with, right? And one of them went into the bathroom, 20 stall bathrooms, right? And he went into the bathroom. The other one thought that he was going to play a joke, and he jumped up over the stall and said, "Hey, fat boy!" It was a grown man sitting in there. It wasn't even our buddy sitting down. So I'm flashbacking to that moment when I'm talking about looking over the cubicle.
Woo!
It was not Fat Boy in there.
No, it was not. No, it was not Fat Boy. Ooh, I just got demonetized.
Okay, maybe that story isn't so funny to everybody else, but in my memory, it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. No, I agree. So
I guess you gotta know. You just have to know Jimmy C. What do you look like doing it? So.
That kind of your story just reminded me of that joke on Animaniacs years ago, where one of the characters like, "Hey, knock knock, who's there? Max. Max who? Max wants to go crazy. I don't get it. You would if you understood knew who Max was, but I don't understand who Max is." Anyway, so the question now for all of you is, and by the way, I meant to mention,
why are you still watching us?
Yeah. People like Driver Steve could definitely benefit from remote work. So like some of these people who maybe have to do Uber because they can't do regular 9-to-5 job, remote work should provide that flexibility where they can now get stable employment again. And it's kind of a shame that that companies want to take that away. But anyway, what do you all think? First of all, do you work for a company that currently has remote work, and what's their stance on remote work? Are they going to try to take you back to the office, and what are your feelings about that? We would love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. And all right, so do we have 10 minutes to maybe answer a few questions? We didn't get a lot of comments during the live stream, but we got a few. I did like this particular one from Rideshare Source Driver. Traffic jams are loss of most precious resource we can't recoup.
Time.
Yep. Time. Yep. You cannot. That's actually a funny joke. That's my rating system is very.
It better be funnier than my story.
It might be. I don't know. But when some people say like, come up to me like, "Hey, did you see such and such movie? What did you give it?" And I'm like, 2 stars, not worth seeing. And they're like, "Oh, so I should rent it instead." And I'm like, if it's not worth seeing in theaters, why the hell would it be worth watching at home? Because I'm not thinking about it like that. You see, they're thinking about it as like a monetary thing. Like, so is it worth paying for or not? It's like, who cares if it's worth paying for? Is it worth losing your time over?
Like Army of the Dead.
Yeah, like Army of the Dead. Actually, me and my wife, we went to see this movie called Serenity with Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway, and boy, that was disappointing to see McConaughey in that so shortly after the Dallas Buyers Club and Mud. Like, boy, dude, you want to kill your career again? And we used AMC Stubs A-List, which basically you can see 3 movies a week. It doesn't matter if it's IMAX, 2D, 3D, whatever. We went to this movie, and it was so bad and there were so few people in there. At one point, I looked at my wife and was like, so, honey, you know the sunk cost fallacy doesn't exist for us right now, right? And she's like, huh? It's like, we're not paying for this, right? Right. Like, this is in some ways a free movie. Yeah. Well, the sunk cost fallacy is since you paid for it, you might as well finish it. Otherwise, it'd be a waste of money, even though the movie's not going to get any better. So, it's not really, you're not getting any more of a bargain. She's like, yeah. And we're not paying for this. Right. So why are we still sitting here? And she's like, I don't know. You want to leave? It's like, yeah, I want to leave. That's the point. I want to leave. So we got up and left.
So is that the same analogy? If the bartender buys me a drink and the drink sucks, I should just leave it?
Yeah, why not? You didn't pay. I actually, if the drink sucked and you paid for it, I just asked for my money back, but and I wouldn't finish it at all. Driver Steve said it's the whole experience of going to see a movie at theater. I don't want to watch at home where it's boring here.
And those experiences at movie theaters, right up until the pandemic hit, were getting really cool. When now they have the recliner chairs and they have, food buffets that you can eat at the theater. Some of these things they're way more comfortable than my living room.
Oh yeah. I know one person who said, I've got my 60-inch TV at home in my recliner. I've got a better experience in the movies. And I was like, yeah, that's cute. It's not as good as a Dolby Cinema. It's not as good as an IMAX. So actually, the funny thing is, even the theaters will sometimes make a bad movie better, at least a fun experience, because there was I don't know why my wife wanted to see this. I'm throwing her under the bus. She really is a wonderful person, folks. I just want that to be known. She's fun. She wanted to, they were doing maybe it's because the movie theaters had just reopened and we were just kind of wanting to get out of the house. One of the revival movies at the local Cinemark was Batman and Robin with George Clooney.
Is that the Clooney one?
Yeah, normally a good actor, not so much.
Silverstone was in that one?
So, no, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, Schwarzenegger is a freeze guy.
Yeah. Yep, you got to see Arnold Schwarzenegger singing I'm Mr. White Christmas, I'm Mr. Snow. So here's the thing. That movie is not going to be good, whether it's in theaters or at home. But the other people at the theater, apparently they had seen this movie too many times, and so they knew when to quote the movie, when to shout things at the theater, and before you know, we're all just getting into openly mocking this movie and laughing at it. And so it's like, it's not a good movie now, but it's a fun night out.
So it was being like at Rocky Horror Picture Show.
It was like being at Rocky Horror Picture Show. So,
I remember the first time I did that. I graduated from high school and we all went to Rocky Horror, and I thought, this is really weird. When people got up and started dancing in costume in front of the screen, and this is a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the modern day equivalent of that experience would be Tommy Wiseau's The Room, which I first started on DVD, and it was so awful. It was so terrible. I wasn't enjoying it. I stopped it after 30 minutes. Someone somehow convinced me to go to like a midnight showing of The Room, but I enjoyed it much more then because people threw spoons at the screen at a certain time when there was like the football scene. A couple guys got out of their seats and tossed a football to one another. Like it was very much like Rocky Horror Picture, and it became a fun experience. So I would never, ever say that just because the movie's bad, it's more worth seeing at home. I think it's a waste of time one way or the other. But if you're going to see something truly awful, you still might as well pay for it, because who knows? The audience might be more entertaining than the movie, and the audience you can't burn on.
You know what? I'm guilty of it, because I have watched, and I remember the worst dog dropping that I think I've seen recently. And when I say recently, I'm talking about the past number of years, Was that Sons of Anarchy? Oh my God, what a piece of garbage. And once I got so far into it, it's like, okay, I might as well see the end. And I remember binge watching that sucker just to get through it. And oh, as painful as it was. So I'm as guilty as everybody else.
No, not me. With a movie, if it's really, there was only one time in recent memory that memory. That's a pun. I didn't even realize I was going to do it, but where I didn't walk out of a movie, and that was with Cats.
Okay, I saw where you're going.
Yeah. I really, really wanted to walk out, and my wife fell asleep, by the way, in the middle of that movie. And the only reason I didn't is because we had tickets to see Star Wars Episode 9 30 minutes after the movie was over. So, I mean, what am I going to do?
You had to kill time.
Walk around in the lobby for 30 minutes? I might as well stick around and at least see how the song is performed. Which, I mean, the funny thing is, like, of course, the memory song was the best part about that. That was one of the two best parts about that movie. And I was like, oh, that was a good scene. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's memory. You'd have to be trying.
Who was Grisabella? Who I don't even know who played
Jennifer Hudson.
Okay.
It's like, but
she
yeah,
can carry a tune.
She can carry it. You'd have to be trying to mess that scene up. You would have to be trying to mess that scene up. So now Roger says, I want to watch 1,000 Ways to Die in the cinema. I actually did see I actually think it was called A Million Ways to Die in the West.
I wonder if there are 1,000 Ways to Die in the cinema. It's kind of like a Phantom of the Opera thing, only death in the cinema.
No, maybe. I don't know. So well, and anyway,
we're really getting off track, aren't we?
This is the off topic.
Well, we have completely derailed, and we're going nowhere.
Well, and that's entirely by design. This is the fun part of the podcast. This is the fun part of the podcast. Although that said, I think we've run our course, and I've noticed that it's almost time for me to make dinner because, just to let everyone know, I'm the one who cooks dinner in this house. So either I start making dinner soon, or I get a very angry lady walking through that door, wondering.
Totally. I know about that.
I don't mind admitting that I cooked dinner. I mean, she does.
No, I'm talking about that angry woman.
Oh well, she's not angry often. That's because I cook dinner on time, and we're going to continue to cook dinner on time, folks. So anyway, although I have to do this one more thing. So only once have I got up and walked out of a movie after only 20 minutes. So it was just that bad and so bad that I forgot the name of the movie. Well,
how did I know? Gremlins.
Gremlins? I like Gremlins.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
Gremlins,
I like Gremlins.
That's on my top 10 list of worst movies. Death Becomes Her was another one. What was that one with Mike, with Douglas and Kathleen Turner? War of the Roses. That was another one that was just. Oh my God, that was a bad movie.
Well, I liked Gremlins. I also kind of liked A Million Ways to Die in the West. I must have been in a good mood that day. I kind of sometimes that was one of the situations where I kind of felt like I must have got up on the wrong side of the bed because everybody hated A Million Ways to Die in the West, and I kind of enjoyed it. I don't know what to say. I just thought it was funny. I wouldn't objectively call it good, but I laughed. That's pretty much what it was there for. So. Anyway, folks, thank you for joining us. We should. How do you like Terminator 2? Oh, one of the best science fiction movies ever made. I mean, really, what do you want me to say about it? Like, that's an awesome movie. I've watched that movie how many times? But anyway, folks, we really are going to bring it to it, and we will probably have Mark here again sometime. And I don't know. Should I ever come onto your channel? This seems like a very one-sided relationship that you're always coming to my house, but I never go to your house.
Yeah, I know it. Well, you do the technology better. I think that's what it boils down to.
That
you just do the technology better. You have all of these different add-ons and things, and you know,
Yep, got a fancy microphone.
teach me, Obi-Wan.
There's not much to teach. It's just how much money are you willing to spend on this?
I do need better sound. I'll give you that. One of these days, I'm gonna have to talk to you about your mic and all that because my sound is not good.
Yeah. Well, this microphone. It's called, what's it called? It's called the Blue.
You got that right, Lisa. It's one of those blue microphones.
It's called a Blue microphone. It costs $130, and I hear it's really a great economic microphone.
Is it one of those big round ones on the tripod thing?
Yeah, it's got a round tripod, and then you can kind of adjust it. Where is Mike
exactly.
Where is Mike and Cecily? I can't get the name correct. Well, Mike no longer likes us.
No, Mike is doing he's doing a famous channel, but he just kind of bailed on it.
Yeah, I'm kidding. There was no animosity with Mike. He decided he didn't want to do the podcast anymore, and that's fine. You know, I don't even think he updates his channel that much anymore. So
he does pretty well. He still has good viewership.
A lot better than me too. Well, he never gave up the ride shares or delivery stuff, whereas you and I kind of. For lack of a better word, we don't want to do this that much anymore. So we want to talk about other things, like whether or not we like gremlins or not. As for Cecily, I think she kind of got out of the rideshare thing a long time ago. She's by far the most successful out of all of us. In fact, for a while, if you went to Fiverr.com, guess whose image you saw welcoming you to Fiverr? Yeah. That was pretty awesome in my opinion.
Yeah, that was neat.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
and then she went to work for Harry Campbell for a while. I don't know if she's still doing stuff on that channel.
I don't know. A couple people who used to work for Harry left him recently. I know. I'm not sure why. Full disclosure, I have no issue with Harry. Reach out to him once in a while, but I know that there's been a few big losses over there. So hey, that happens. People move on. So anyway, folks, thank you for joining us. We'll try to make the podcast thing a regular on Friday. Yeah, Friday's a good day. And we would like it if you subscribe to us, whether it be on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. We'd be happy to have you. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.
Night, everyone.